Welcome back to the NDK Cyber Podcast. I'm Nick Kebble, your host. I'm particularly excited for our conversation as someone who's not only passionate about cybersecurity, but also a keen golfer. And it's a real pleasure to merge these two worlds in today's episode. Joining us is a distinguished guest, James Oliva, who is the Senior Director of Cybersecurity at the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour is not just a pinnacle of golfing excellence, but also a global high-profile organisation. Keeping such a prestigious entity safe from digital threats is no small feat, and James is at the forefront of this critical battle. James and his team navigate the complex digital landscape to protect the integrity and privacy of the tour, its players, and millions of fans worldwide, from sophisticated cyber attacks to the ever-present risk of data breaches. And the work they do is vital and endlessly fascinating. As we tee off this conversation, James will share insights into the unique challenges of safeguarding the PGA Tour and the innovative strategies his team employs to stay ahead of threats. So, without further ado, let's welcome James to the show. Welcome, James Oliva, Senior Director of Cybersecurity at PGA Tour, the infamous PGA Tour. Thanks for joining us, James.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
I've done a little intro about you already anyway, but I haven't sort of gone through your journey. Did you want to just give us a quick overview of your sort of journey thus far, how you arrived in your current role?
Sure. So, it all goes back to when I was a kid. I was one of the lucky ones that was able to have a computer in my room, a TI-99 back in the day. So I grew up always with a keyboard in front of me, learned how to program BASIC on an Apple IIe, that sort of thing. Got into the BBS and Wear scene for better or worse, a little bit of freaking here and there, and other things that are probably, it's a good thing there's a statute of limitations. But that sort of culture captured me from the very beginning. And as I went through my mischievous teen years, dropped out of high school, worked, retail and food and doing dishes and doing everything and realizing that I needed to find a better way, I eventually realized I need to go back to school and try to do something, because I ended up in a tech support gig, elevated to the highest level within a few months, doing senior support there. When the opportunity came around to get out of that and start going back to school, I took it and ended up getting an associate's degree and then BS in comp. So from there, it was just kind of like what was next, building everything from OCR templates, doing data analysis, ended up helping basically run the IT side of a company manufacturing industrial heat treating equipment, moved all through that sort of stuff. It ended up getting a green field at a nonprofit for a few years and really kind of building out a full-blown infrastructure for that from the very ground up. And then somehow ended up at the PGA Tour, being able to kind of tap into really focus solely on security, which has kind of been a dream come true.
So you've come through the sort of traditional infrastructure route, support and to management to cybersecurity, and landed yourself a good gig at the PGA Tour.
Yeah, and I mean, I still wear my network engineering hat when I need to go in and get into a couple squabbles about what's going on with an issue. But it's nice to be able to solely focus in the security space instead of having to be a jack of all, like all over the place, trying to figure out, oh well, we've got an issue going on with this server while I've also, dealing with a botnet over here, or, I'm having to deal with something happening because somebody clicked a phish or some other thing, and having that split brain and constantly, competing with yourself to give users access while at the same time you shouldn't give users access. So, not having that split brain is great.
And I guess many people would look at the PGA Tour and instantly sort of feel that, famous golfers, loads of tournaments, support of charities around the world. But we've spoken about this, and there's much more to it, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the crazy thing. Everybody thinks a tournament, oh, well, you just show up, right? Well, I mean, we're rolling trucks out to get that entire course set up with all the various sensors, all the network equipment that needs to be there. We're rolling out fan Wi-Fi in some areas of the course. We're bolstering all these things up. We're rolling out 14 miles of fiber pretty much every week. And all of the logistics that go into that are insane. And then at the same time, we're trying to secure that because we have all this data coming in from all those sensors, all the TrackMan stuff, all of that comes back. We push that all to a broadcasting unit that's then pushing all that stuff out to TV, right? So all of that is in-house. We're, we have TV partners. Yeah, we're sending stuff over there, but we're doing a lot of the production on it. And we're continuing to evolve that product. Like it's not just a stagnant thing. We're building the fan experience. We've got applications. We've got things on the Vision Pro now. It's a really cool app. If anybody hasn't checked it out and you've got a Vision Pro, check it out. It's pretty neat. You can see the course. You can see the shot trails, all sorts of stuff. Great new products, which means we have software development going on. We're trying to innovate and create better ways to capture the game and to basically provide that to the fan. So there's a whole bunch going on with the fan experience. So it's not just your traditional, hey, you show up at an arena and it's stagnant cameras even. It's, we've got hundreds of cameras across a course as we try to drive towards getting to things like Every Shot Live, where we can let the fan go through and experience seeing their favorite golfer go through the course, shot after shot after shot, being able to really kind of zoom in on that swing and be like, well, how can I improve, right? It's all there. And that's what we're continuously working towards. There's a lot.
Yeah. It sounds it, and we all want to be golfers, aren't we? And does the data come back, and is there sort of like a, I don't know, most popular angle, most popular shot, most popular stat that as an organization that you've got to get out?
I think it's primarily when we're tracking that location and how close you're getting to the pin and that sort of thing. Like that's what people want to know. Like, how far did that drive really go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other data that fans want to know that we probably do have somewhere. We've got a great data analytics team that's able to dig in and give you like percentages of, in this weather condition at this time of day, this golfer has this sort of probability to kind of get within this distance of that pin. So there's a whole lot that goes into that. We're looking at how we can even build our own internal AI models and stuff like that to kind of ask those natural questions. So that way we can improve the broadcast as well and give people those kind of really cool little nuggets of information.
Yeah, cool. So with that, bringing cybersecurity in there and sort of segueing into that, you've got famous golfers, you've got hundreds of tours going on globally, multi-country, different broadcasting, loads of partners, fans, walking around, golfers talking to everybody, doing what they think they should be doing, all that kind of stuff. What are the biggest challenges from a cybersecurity point of view do you face that maybe might be a little bit different to working in a bank, telco, insurance type of organization?
I think one of the biggest ones is just the fact that when we talk about a tournament and securing a tournament, all those all those data connections are out there. So, we suffer from stuff when we look at at truly availability that other people don't have to deal with, like lawnmowers. There's always the joke as a network engineer that it was like, if there's a backhoe, it's going to be hungry and it's going to eat fiber. Well, lawnmowers like fiber too. So we've definitely run into cases of having to patch fiber overnight because the lawnmowers came through and took out a fiber. We've done some stuff to make it more resilient, but that's always a threat, right? There's always physical threat right there on the course. But the other thing is we have a lot of the traditional same threat that a lot of companies do. We have to deal with phishing attacks. We're dealing with password sprays against VPNs and stuff like that APT29 appears to be doing right now. We've got all the same sort of general infrastructure that a normal company has. The only difference is that we're slightly higher profile. We hit the news. So when we hit the news, guess what? Somebody's going to turn something on. We've got some back and forth right now with various groups that are not happy with things in the world. And so we sometimes become a target because of that reason alone. And that's it. You've got that news element that can spike what you're seeing, especially from a phishing campaign perspective.
Yeah. And this may be a silly question, I don't know, but I recently came back from a golfing trip actually, and we were sort of freaked out by some of the remote lawnmowers going on the course. And bearing in mind the new kind of IoT space and a lot of the attacks coming away from central hubs and going through down to sort of the vendor chain, is there sort of security awareness or issues about attacks coming through from that side?
Yeah, we have concerns on that, but most of that stuff we segment off, right? So we don't let the things that don't need to talk on the network to the sensitive stuff talk. I'm a big fan of shunting all IoT traffic into its own subnets and being very careful in what you bring back for that exact reason. I mean, command and control can get access anywhere, and once it's got access, now it's starting to move its way laterally, right? Until it can find its next way to escalate vertically. So from that perspective, it's break traffic down into subnets so that way you can actually isolate stuff out. Otherwise, you're going to end up in that target situation where the AC is what gets you.
So for the minute, the remote lawnmowers are safe.
For the moment, yeah, I hope
Yeah,
so. I haven't looked specifically at those as the exact threat model, but
yeah,
we definitely have some sprinkler systems that I'm kind of like, do we really need those to be fully automated like that?
yeah,
And there's always the challenge with IoT vendors, right? Is they're trying to build a product and get a product out. Security's not in their top 10 list of things that they're trying to get in that feature set.
yeah,
So we have some back and forth with some of our IoT vendors, trying to get them to kind of, hey, look, address this issue in your product. This software module is a bit old. You need to kind of update it.
yeah. It's really off-putting when you're about to take a shot and you see a massive lawnmower with nobody driving it. Hey
Yeah,
ho.
yeah. It's kind of like it's like when you're walking through like San Francisco and you see some of the automated cars. You're kind of, I don't know if
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah. Would I get in? Would I get in? Okay, cool. And so generally speaking, what are you seeing from an attack incident sort of wise, general cybersecurity landscape? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of goes back more to all that phishing attacks. I mean, that's never going to go away. When you look for the gap in coverage, you're going to go after the softest target, and you can train your users as much as you want, but they're still going to be targeted. So
Mm,
all it takes is one mistake, and now you've opened at least something up. And so it's making sure that you've got that under control. The other thing that we're seeing again is we're a target for botnets, right? We've got a very big brand. We work with partners like AWS to help us kind of knock that back as much as we can at the perimeter, as well as companies like Fortinet and other big vendors that help us out. So we do what we can, but I think we face the same sort of threat with right now. I think APT29's fired up, going against a bunch of VPN servers, creating denial of service attacks on user accounts. And we can probably talk a little bit more about maybe how some of that's happening as things have kind of evolved a little bit later.
So even though we've seen cybersecurity over the last sort of 10 years with all the new tooling and vendors and all those kind of things and awareness programs, but the traditional old school route in is still right up there, isn't it? It seems.
Oh yeah, 100%. We look at some of the latest breaches. They got in by going and targeting. They did a little research on LinkedIn, saw somebody who had access, figured out their
Yeah.
email address, and started going after them. And we're going to keep seeing that. We're never
Mm,
going to not see it. That's why multi-factor authentication is a thing. Getting additional validation, separating accounts where necessary, just-in-time access, things like that provide real value because of the fact that this stuff doesn't stop. You're going to be a target regardless. That's why things like Scam School, like, and other YouTube channels show up, because
mm,
they're showing you literally these people are out there and they are doing this because there is financial gain. If there is money involved and somebody can make money without having to do something too egregious, they're going to do
mm.
it. And some people maybe would do something egregious, but for the most part, the scale and scope is easy. They can sit in, a foreign country and go after essentially another country with no real repercussions.
Mm.
Maybe the call center gets shut down after years of investigation and they go to their local jail for a couple of months. Maybe. You never
Mm.
know what's going to happen, but for the most part, those shops keep churning out calls, keep getting people to sign over their life savings. So it's going after that human element over and over again.
Yeah, it's still very poignant. So on that note then, cybersecurity, how, in your sort of mind then, going from cybersecurity to a cyber resilience framework, how do you do that? And how have you maybe managed to do that within the PGA Tour?
So the big thing there is it's evolving from just, hey, we've put in a whole bunch of tools, we've put in a whole bunch of sensors and things like that, to creating the culture of it, to where people are not just thinking about what's happening in, their space, but they're thinking about it from a secure point of view. They're thinking, hey, if I do this thing, then there's a chance that somebody could break it in a way that I'm not expecting. So let me look at it a little closer. Let me pull security in. Let me have them look at it. Let me do this in my daily life. Let me use a password manager. Let me not have the same password everywhere. Let me make sure I've got MFA set up. It's having those conversations and having those trainings available to people that really kind of helps you build that overall culture and show them even the scams that are happening. Sit down with them and show them, hey, look, we send you this cybersecurity awareness training once a year, right? It tells you about all these things. Well, we're going to sit down with you and show you how to do them too. And doing that and adding that into the regular cadence of the year, not just loading it all in October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It needs to be a year-long process, and you need to have those touch points continuously, and trying to create that feeling for an organization that security isn't there to be that group that says no. Security is there to help enable the business in such a way that the business can do things securely, so that we don't at later points end up with brand damage, data leakage, which leads to potential issues in the media, which also leads to the betraying the trust of our fans. That's extremely important to us, to make sure our fans' data is secure and private. We don't want to splash out everybody's info. That's not good. It's just, it's probably out there from all sorts of other breaches and leaks. When we look at AT&T recently, that's a huge number, but we don't want to be part of that. So we do everything we can to protect our fans. We protect our employees. We protect everyone. We share information with FBI when we're dealing with attacks. We report to the IP abuse database when we're seeing botnet traffic and that sort of thing. We're trying to do our part to ensure the safety of everyone, not just the tour.
And we've spoken to a lot of CISOs about sort of post-attack and the damage that has, and legal counsel coming in, and sort of public relations, and with organizations with a high share price, and how it can damage the share price. But I guess with you guys, it's the brand, isn't it? It's the brand management has got to be right up there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's one of the most critical elements. There's other SLAs and other things that we have to consider from a financial perspective. But at the end of the day, the PGA Tour is a brand. And, beyond just protecting the fans and the players, we have to protect the brand, because that's what helps generate all of the fanfare and all of the coverage, so that our players can show how amazing they are at the game of golf.
No pressure then.
Yeah, none at all. It's great. I'm just going to take a nap later. It'll be fun.
Switch on back later. Why not? And so yeah, you started out 20 plus years ago, and you've gone through all these sort of different cycles of technology, and then eventually sort of moved into the cybersecurity space. But from a sort of a senior leadership communication point of view, what sort of changes have you seen over that time that leaders, like yourself, you're a senior director in a really important role for a really important global brand? What's a strong leadership skill to have now?
I think the biggest one is still going to be communication, from a skill set, right? You need to be able to communicate what the issue is, and you need to do it in such a way that you're not just generating fear. It's easy to sell on fear. I can sit here and I can scare the living crap out of you with, all the statistics, all the things that are going on, how this threat actor is doing X, Y, and Z. But if I'm not giving you a path to how we can do better, if I'm not trying to figure out how can the business excel with security, then I'm not really fulfilling my real role. It's my job to enable the business in a secure way. It's not my job to basically say no to everything. Yes, I have to say no to things, because sometimes we're just not in the right direction. And it's up to me to kind of help build in that course correction. If we can do things up front, before we've gotten to launch, great. We're working more and more on that as we shift left with a lot of our software development. But at the end of the day, I have to be able to communicate, hey, look, this isn't secure. We need to do this in a better way. Here's some alternatives. Here's some ideas. Let's go forward and figure this out together, so that way we can be successful.
And from the non-technical perspective as well, because I would imagine a lot of the audience that you communicate with aren't that way inclined, don't come from an IT background.
Yeah, and the good thing is that a lot of the stuff that's out there now, you can usually find a decent story, on beeping computers, or Tech Radar, or something that kind of helps with some of that. Some of it is maybe I'm going to take some of my geek speak and toss it into Chat GPT and say, hey, give me this for a non-technical user, and try to kind of shape that language more to the audience, right? And that's it's communication 101, right? Who are you talking to, and how do you present that to them in a way that makes sense to them, and a cohesive argument on why your way is a better way than the path you're taking. So that's critical to me. I think as we talk to senior leadership, painting that picture and providing that outside point of view with some of those articles. I try to even include some of these articles, like when we can actually get attribution in an incident report, like, and it's because we have, hey, here's an article that says this is what we're seeing from an attack point, and what's happening. I'll toss that into the incident report even, because just showing that, hey, look, you know, this isn't just us, or this is something that's known in the world. We may not be able to have 100% certainty that it is this group, but hey, at least this is better than where we're at. And at least it gives us some clarity and understanding that this is a bigger problem. Because if finance understands that, hey, this is happening everywhere, they're much more likely to help back you when it's time to ask for that budget to protect the organization.
Sure. AI, big subject, last 12 months or so. I mean, you mentioned it before, actually, that you were potentially using the advantages of AI. But first off, the impact of AI in your world, how do you kind of see that?
I see it as a way to shorten the development cycle of not just malware, but very calculated spear phishing attacks. I'm looking at this current password spray thing that's going on right now. Cisco sent out a message about it as well. And just thinking about the attack path on it and how easy it would be to start building decision trees out using AI, to start building out the scripting to the point where it's like, hey, scan these different domains. As soon as you find the domain, go ahead and scan it for various potential VPN subdomains, hit those. Once you're hitting those, now you're starting to talk about, okay, well, I know what the domain name is. Why don't I feed that into usernames? Okay, well, now I can go and search various like data sets that have these usernames. Let me start feeding those in. The dark web's full of paste drops and everything else that have tons of information to make that credential stuffing process much more easy. And I think that's some of what we're seeing. I don't know how much was AI based, but I mean, I can easily see how you can run through that process and end up in the situation we are, where we've got a botnet just spamming all sorts of VPN endpoints, creating a denial of service simply because it's locking out user accounts because it's trying to, password spraying stuff.
Where do you see the next 3 years with AI? Do you see it? Do you think that we'll all be in a much more complex and be much more disadvantaged because of AI, or do you think that we would have got hold of the benefits of AI and sort of turned it in sort of more of a positive stance?
I think it's going to be a mix. I
Yeah.
think you're going to have some really cool tools come out that are leveraging AI to analyze large data sets to be able to pick up on anomalies that normally would take days, weeks, months to figure out. And at the same time, the attack vectors are going to get more complicated because they're going to be able to utilize known vulnerabilities in an area, so they can figure out how to actually start streaming together some of these CVEs to go from, minor actions to major actions as you are able to kind of start combining CVEs in an environment. And you're able to say, oh, well, now that I've gotten access to the environment, I've scanned the environment, I know what's in the environment. Now I can take all that data back and figure out, well, what's my next attack path? And maybe do it more silently because you can live off the land more natively because the AI is able to kind of manage that for you. PowerShell's everywhere. If you're not locking down PowerShell, then guess what? AI that's on a rat is going to now have access to PowerShell in your environment. And there's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting how it all pans out. We ask everybody on Secure Insights, James, to offer their kind of biggest piece of advice to the next generation. The podcast was actually started originally we wanted to sort of get as many experienced and professionals within cybersecurity to give their sort of take on why cybersecurity is a really good profession to get into, and also the biggest maybe learning points and advice to that next gen. But before I ask you that, what message would you give to people perhaps who are thinking about still breaking into cybersecurity, whether they come from a technical background or a non-technical background? Why would you entice them into the industry?
Why I would entice them into the industry is because they want to fight the good fight. It's a situation where this is never ending. And if you want to constantly have to challenge yourself and constantly learn, constantly pay attention to what's happening, Maybe you've got a little bit of a poli-sci nerd in you, like I do, and you understand that there is more going on beyond your organization walls. The global landscape and the politics that are happening across the world impact you, whether you realize it or not, because your major foreign powers are very much engaged in cyber activity, and they're not necessarily doing it just against other nation states. They're targeting companies as well. So in some ways you are fighting the good fight. You're going against cyber criminals who are trying to ransomware hospitals and things
Yep.
like that. It's like things that used to be very like off the table, like way back in the day. Like there was a whole lot more do no harm, but now it's like, nah, it's about money. We can probably point to things like cryptocurrencies as some of the generators for that, because it made the extortion much easier. So if you're curious, if you want to fight the good fight, you want to make a difference in people's lives by helping them be more secure, you should be in the field. And it's not just like you have to work on a SOC. It's not like you have to, there are so many different areas in security that your talents can be utilized in a variety of ways. If you're really detail oriented, maybe you're working in GRC, so you're doing more governance, risk, and compliance,
Yeah.
and you're making sure that systems are what they say they are. Because typically when you look at attack chains and things like that, the failure points happen because somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, or its process didn't fire the way that it was supposed to fire, and so something didn't get applied or installed that should have been there. So be curious and be willing to have a few sleepless nights when things get a little chaotic, but there's always a challenge, and if you're up for a challenge, this is a good field to be in.
It's a great industry, isn't it? And ever evolving, new job titles coming out every other year, and probably quicker
Yeah,
than that going forward as well.
yeah, and I think I'd say one other thing is get involved in your local community. Your local security community probably exists. I mean, it may be, if you're not in a major metro area, it may be a little lackluster, but you're probably close enough to a major metro area that there's probably a group around. There's plenty of Discord channels, Slack channels, subreddits. Twitter is still sort of a thing. There's all sorts of avenues. Get involved in the community, because this has been one of the most supportive communities I've ever seen in my life. I've got a huge Rolodex of people that literally I can just shoot them a message on a number of different platforms and get advice. And they're more than happy to give it, because everybody's sort of like, people realize we're all in this together.
Exactly.
Like this doesn't just affect my company. This affects a lot of people, because software can be played all over the place.
Yeah. And one thing I did pick up on when you decided to move into cybersecurity, you kind of went back into education, didn't you? I think from that description, you picked up some of the certifications. Is that so? People coming from sort of the technical backgrounds, is that a route that you would advise them to do?
Absolutely. And it's not so much that it's getting the certificate. There's a couple reasons I'm a huge proponent of people getting certificates. It's validating your knowledge. Sometimes it's even, in the coursework, you're going to learn some stuff, right? And that's one of the arguments I hear from a lot of people are like, well, I already know all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, prove it. Show me. I know you. I talk to you as a person. I know that you do know this information. So show everybody else. I think there's value to that, especially when people talk about, well, nobody will look at my resume. Well, yeah, because you aren't showing what you actually know. You aren't getting past the filters. You aren't getting past the HR filters and things like that. So there's a value to that certification just from that aspect alone.
Yeah. So if you're coming from if you're a network engineer today or an SA or something like that, then your advice would be to validate what you know so far, take some certifications, segue into the cybersecurity certification, join all the groups, the communities, network. Obviously, I guess one of the best ways to move into cybersecurity is if you can do an internal move in your current company. But that's kind of the first step, and that's the difference, isn't it? People, some people still say, yeah, I'd love to get into cybersecurity. How do I do it? Well, we can say how you do it, but you've got to go and put the foundation in and the groundwork in, haven't you, to sort of segue over. But once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, I mean, and until you want to get out, like there's definitely that other side of it too, where people get to burn out and want to go back to something a little bit less intense.
Mm.
But I think that that's pretty much one of the better pathways. I think it's a
Mm.
lot easier to show your knowledge and then basically have somebody take a chance on you,
Mm.
because that's what it boils down to. And if you're building those networks so that you actually are talking to people that are at these various user groups and, you know, showing, hey, look, I have aptitude, I have desire to learn, I want to be in this space, it makes that connection a lot more valuable, because that connection could potentially vouch for you to get into that role.
Okay, brilliant. And lastly, the perks that you get for PGA Tour. What they like.
I mean, we have a beautiful facility. We joke that we have probably one of the best headquarters that you could ever ask for. We've got a little swing room off on the side that we can take a few shots at. We're right on the back of a very well-known golf course in Ponte Vedra, so we can take a little look here and there at some very beautiful island green from time to time. Overall, though, I think one of the biggest things is this is one of the most supportive organizations I've ever been in. Our company culture is extremely positive. There's a real care from the very top down. The commissioner cares about everybody at the tour. There's a focus on making sure your mental health is good. And insecurity, man, I harp on this, but burnout is real. And having an organization that recognizes that mental health is important it's amazing. So the supportive culture is second to none. And I think that's one of those things that can't be said enough. When you look across the overall employee tenure, and on average you're looking around more like 10 years and 15 years of employment, not 2 or 3, you're in a place that really cares about their people.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's great to hear, because it is a real thing. The burnout, that's picking up a lot of pace with conversations now across many country zones that we hear. So that'd be, I'm sure, a topic that we'll be covering down the line on here. And yeah, we'd love to have your thoughts on that. We could do a completely separate discussion point about that. But yeah, it sounds, in terms of the environment working for the PGA Tour, sounds great. Sounds great. You look like
Yeah,
you've landed one of the best jobs in the world. And if ever I can get myself into cybersecurity, I'll send you my CV.
sounds good. We definitely have some offices over across the pond too. So
Yeah, cool. Excellent. James, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and some of your stories and advice. It's been magnificent. It shed some really good light on what goes on with the PGA Tour, what you have to do, and some of the pressures that you are under. And next time I watch one of them on Sky or whatever channels, it won't be just the sort of the shots I'll be looking at. I'll be thinking about you running around, making sure everything's all sort of watertight everywhere.
yeah, I mean, literally watertight. Like most of those cases on the course are watertight. So.
Yeah, but it's been brilliant. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.